The main thing with bone broth is it helps to heal the intestinal tract. Bone broth comes in with its collagen and gelatin and its minerals and its amino acid complex and helps us begin to heal the internal side of the body. So from there, we have synergy with everything else that you're doing. We start seeing better immune responses to things that are coming into our life. We start to digest all the food we're putting into our bodies. We start to absorb. I like to say at bonebroth.com, you are what you eat, but more importantly, you are what you absorb. So when you start to heal that tract, all those supplements you're taking start to get into your body at a larger percentage, and then you start feeling better.
Welcome to the Wise Traditions Podcast, sponsored by the Weston A Foundation for Wise Traditions in Food, Farming, and the Healing Arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
I'm your host, Toda Labrada Gore. This is episode 43, and my guest is Lance Roll, better known perhaps as Chef Lance. Lance has been a professional chef for 28 years. Convinced of the healing and beneficial properties of bone broth, Chef Lance has made it his mission to bring healing bone broth cooked in the traditional manner back to the marketplace. If you weren't convinced before of how critical broth is for your diet, you will be after this show. Before we begin, we want to recognize our sponsors. Wise Traditions is supported by the Weston A Foundation. Hear speakers like those featured on these podcasts at the Wise Traditions Conference in Montgomery, Alabama, November 11th to the 14th. Learn, eat well, and have fun. Go to wisetraditions.org for details. And listeners like you. The Weston A Foundation just wrapped up a fundraising drive, but it's not too late to give a donation of any size to continue their important work of education, research, and activism. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Lance.
Hey, Hilda, great to be here and very honored to be on the Weston A podcast.
Well, we're glad to have you, and I wanted to have you because I feel like broth is all the buzz now. You know, everybody's talking about broth, and so I really want to know background on this fantastic product. Tell us a little bit about how you got going with this.
Absolutely. It definitely comes back to the Weston A Foundation. In 2006, I was introduced to Nourishing Traditions and Sally Fallon. And of course, at that point, I'd been a chef for about 18 years. And as a professional, classically trained chef, I've been making broths and stocks and soups and things from all my career. And here it was, Nourishing Traditions, and the beautiful article, Broth is Beautiful, and learning that this product had an incredible health benefit. What really changed for me in 2006, as I was transitioning to my own business, was the idea of organic food. And, I'll mention my mentor, Paul Chek, holistic health practitioner here in San Diego, and an amazing man and amazing philosophy. Of course, like I said, he introduced me to the Weston A way of eating and doing things and said to me, Lance, if you're going to cook for my people, you need to cook out of this cookbook. So I tore into Nourishing Traditions like no other book before, garnered this clientele who was eating all organic, all real food. I mean, the slow food movement had been going for a little while, but this was really, I tell people the Weston A is the backbone and the really the originator and the never changing from a real food movement, and serving up whole foods from the time before before the processed food movement came in, and what Weston A had did himself to show the destruction of the Western diet. So at that point, like I said, I got a hold of Broth is Beautiful and started cooking all organically, transferred my own life to organic food, and started serving my clients organic food and cooking bone broth, simmering chicken bones and beef bones for hours at a time and serving them this beautiful gelatinous product that was helping people feel better.
But don't traditional chefs also use broth? Were you using it broth before?
Yeah, like I said, I was classically trained, so we would be making what we called stock and sometimes simmering that into soup. But the stock, the difference, again, it's a great point for your audience as well, is stock is made as a base for making other products, whereas broth is made for consumption. So your broth is a finished product that's ready to sip. It's a sippable bone broth, and it usually contains more meat than just bones. And of course, it's simmered for a lot longer. So stocks would cook 7 to 10 hours, 4 hours on chicken, and 7 to 10 hours on beef. Whereas in our broth production, we're simmering our bone broths for 18 hours on the chicken and 24 hours on the beef. And we're really focused on a nutrient density at that point. Whereas in classical cooking, we were just focused on flavor. We weren't even concerned about organic or not organic. We were concerned about making a product that we could reduce into a demi-glace, which is a half stock, or even a glace, which is a fully reduced stock that's just ready to serve as well as a sauce, like I was saying. So that's how we were using sauces and stocks, and again, sometimes we would make a broth and turn it into a soup, for that part of the menu as well.
Well, it's kind of cool when I hear you speaking. It reminds me of kind of the phrase, everything old is new again. So, in other words, broth has been around for millennia, probably, right? And now it's suddenly trendy. What do you think people are looking for when they're turning to broth?
Well, what we found is, for the most part, we have especially with Weston A price as well as the background, we have people seeking for what they call optimum health. And what's happening is people are understanding that their bodies are a function of what they eat, what they put into their bodies, and how they treat their temple and where they live, and more and more people. So it becomes, like I tell people, it's part of a protocol. In 2008, I trademarked the term "broth is good for you, promotes a healthier you." And in that part, "broth is good for you, promotes a healthier you," we're basically just saying, look, this is part of a protocol. We don't find people coming to bone broth that haven't already started taking probiotics. They still have an exercise program. They drink the right amount of water every day. They have an opportunity to sort of create a spiritual and emotional well-being. They include all those things, and then with their diet, they might be going all organic. They might be, trying to eliminate processed foods from their thing. They're starting to cook on their own. So bone broth becomes part of that protocol that people are looking for. Optimum Health. David Getoff out here at Price Pottinger, he runs Optimum Health in the 21st Century, and that's his program every year. And that's what people are after. They're taking beautiful supplements. I work with Kim Schutte, a chapter leader out here in Solana Beach, and she only sells the best, finest, purest forms of supplements. The cod liver oils from Green Pasture, the standard processed vitamins, and certain types of minerals. And of course, she carries our bone broth for her clients as well. So all of that together, we have a beautiful picture of people striving for health and trying to avoid basically the healthcare system by taking care of their bodies first.
So, what is it about bone broth? What are some of the benefits that have actually come out in studies that we can enjoy?
The main thing with bone broth is it helps to heal the intestinal tract. At bonebroth.com and the Brothery, which I'll tell you a little story on that in a minute too. At bonebroth.com, our mission statement is to heal the planet one GI tract at a time. That's a stated mission that we own. And that mission statement is because we know from nutrition and from health practitioners and doctors that 80% of our immune system is located in the digestive tract. So the intestinal tract, that's where the immune system is. When we start to heal that, and we find lots of people with multiple symptoms from years and years of not knowing, eating processed foods, drinking too much soda, coffee, all the things that are being presented to kids, tons of sugar. When they start to move to real food and change that over, they have essentially problems in their gut lining. So bone broth comes in with its collagen and gelatin and its minerals and its amino acid complex, and helps us begin to heal the internal side of the body. So from there, we have synergy with everything else that you're doing. We start seeing better immune responses to things that are coming into our life. We start to digest all the food we're putting into our bodies. We start to absorb. I like to say at bonebroth.com, you are what you eat, but more importantly, you are what you absorb. So when you start to heal that tract, all those supplements you're taking start to get into your body at a larger percentage, and then you start feeling better,
Yeah.
So
And
that's
Lance,
the main one. There's a few more as well.
tell me, tell us.
Well, again, like I said, when I was getting into the mineral, my very good friend Krista Orecchio, And even working with Kim Schutte, the both of them helped my wife and I to conceive a baby 6 years ago, and postnatal to continue with the bone broth and to because it's a quote mineral elixir. So there's lots of macro minerals as well as trace minerals that the baby when you're nursing is taking away. So there's a wonderful mineral complex, and that's why it also ends up being an amazing recovery drink for athletes. And so they're putting all the stuff they're taking out of their body back in. And most importantly, Hilda, for everyone out there, bone broth is real food. And our bodies are essentially designed, molecularly designed. And the way Paul Chek explained it to me was like, look, your body can only recognize certain molecules. And when we put real food into our body, whether it be a piece of salmon, a lettuce, a cucumber versus processed food that has tons of chemicals in it, the body does not see those things as food and can't do anything with them. So with the real food, we have optimum nutrition, we have bioavailability of the nutrients, and it absorbs directly into our system through our intestinal tract. So, and the last one is amino acids. There's a whole amino acid profile, like we were saying in the book Nourishing Broth that Sally put out a few years ago. Right as the bone broth trend hit, she was actually about a month prior to the bone broth trend. And interestingly enough, it wasn't even her book that started the trend. It was some guy in New York, serving this amazing thing called bone broth out of a window in the East Village, Funny to that, but her book came out September 30th, 2014. And in that book, you have a mineral breakdown of our short cook 2-hour broth and our long cook 18-hour broth. And you can see the amount of amino acids and trace minerals that are in the broth.
So all this stuff, you are speaking so confidently because obviously you've studied it, but you also have probably heard personal stories of people whose lives have been changed and whose health has been turned around because of broth.
Absolutely. We have some great testimonies, Hilda. We had one gal, and this was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and we were in a local store called Jimbo's here. And the girls over the counter said, hey, she said, I'm struggling with leaky gut. And she had a terrible case of eczema. And, so the girl said to her, look, we know this product, bone broth, Chef Lance makes over here in San Diego. It's certified organic. Really delicious. Once you go on that, add that to your diet and see how you do. She wrote me an email practically in tears about 8 weeks later and said, you wouldn't believe it. My leaky gut has cleared up, and to tag along, the eczema was gone as well.
Wow.
And she basically said one of the only changes she had was putting the bone broth into her diet. And of course, like even in the book Nourishing Broth, there are testimonies throughout that entire book of healing regimens from bone broth. And interestingly enough as well, like we talked earlier, it's not so much the silver bullet, but it's part of the protocol. Most of those testimonies talk about people that added, they added certain probiotics to their diet. They added cod liver to their diet. They took away processed dairy from their diet, and then added back the bone broth. And as those things happen, people's bodies begin to heal.
We want to pause now and thank our sponsors. The Weston A. Price Foundation. Are you enjoying these podcasts? You can hear speakers like those featured here in person at the Wise Traditions Conference in Montgomery, Alabama this November. Yes, Lance will be there with his broth, of course, and I will too. You'll get to know us and so many others as you delve deeper, ask questions, and connect with like-minded people who care about nourishing their health through nutrient-dense foods. There will be 44 speakers, 5 delicious meals, 85 great exhibitors, and over 1,000 attendees. So learn, eat well, and have fun. Go to wisetraditions.org for details. And listeners like you. We really could not continue on the air were it not for your support. Please do whatever you can to support this work. If you're enjoying the podcast, give a donation of any size to the Weston A. Price Foundation or rate and review us on iTunes. We appreciate it. And now back to the program.
We did have one other amazing testimony as well, and I kick myself for not getting the guy's name, but he did call us from Los Angeles, and we shipped him a bunch of beef broth. And he basically called back and said, "Look, I've been struggling with ulcerative colitis for 15 years. I'm a Hollywood guy. I've been going to all the best doctors, spending tons and tons of money. And this is no joke, folks. He told me in 10 days of drinking mostly beef broth for 10 days, his ulcerative colitis was gone." And again, I don't make health claims here. I'm just telling you what people told me. And nicely enough, right now, in the landscape of this bone broth revolution, as Dr. Kellyanne calls it, this bone broth revolution, we have doctors like Kellyanne Petrucci, Dr. Chaudhry here in San Diego, Sally Fallon, Kayla Daniel wrote Nourishing Broth. We've got Louise Hay and Heather Dane, The Bone Broth Secret. And, we have documented cases of doctors upon doctors that are now recommending bone broth to their clients for scientific reasons.
And hopefully they're taking it themselves, I imagine, because you actually told me, if you wouldn't mind telling our listeners, you told me a little bit about how it's impacted your life.
Absolutely. I mean, I was struggling. I'm a chef for all these years. I have my own business, so therefore I'm an entrepreneur for 10 years now, and just been, battling the bulge for a long time. Like I said, Kellyanne came out with this book, Dr. Kellyanne Petrucci, The Bone Broth Diet, and she claims 14 days and 21 days, 14 pounds, inches, and wrinkles. And I read through her book, and part of the protocols, what she has to do these mini fasts, basically these little, they call intermittent fasting. And it's where you take 17, 18 hours at a time. And you basically drink bone broth sometime up to 24 hours, depending on your condition. So basically what I did about 7-8 weeks ago, of course, I'm drinking bone broth most mornings. I go into my kitchen, there's the bone broth simmering. I'm testing it, making sure it's delicious. I have a big giant cup, so it's pretty easy for me to drink lots of bone broth. And basically I started drinking a lot more bone broth. I started drinking 2-3 times a day. And I noticed that it does exactly what it says it does. It satiates you. So versus a juicing fast where you might be hungry, with bone broth, you tend to lose your hunger. And combined with the proper hydration and some exercise, I stripped 20 pounds off my body in the last 12 weeks. So a nice, slow, good, solid weight loss, and it's being used as a weight loss secret. It's not a secret anymore, but people want to add this to their diet instead of snacking on something different in the afternoon. Have a cup of bone broth, satiate you. You might go to bed having a small dinner and wake up having a cup of bone broth and etc. And you find yourself satisfied. So you're not reaching for those things I would typically reach for. Mm-hmm. So that's how it's impacted me. And of course, just to tell you, my son, 6 years old. We'll go into a whole history of him. He's super healthy. He's got an amazing constitution. He's, in school for the last two and a half years and never, hasn't missed a day of school. Kids his age, come in and, he gets a sniffle here and there, but for the most part, he had a cold just recently, 24 hours, done. And I think it's because we feed him a lot. He loves bone broth and he eats it. He's been eating it since a baby. It was one of his first foods, and it's so digestible. But again, he's been trained also to eat really good food in general because his parents feed him good food. So yeah, a great thing for your kids as well.
I bet that's quite the contrast with most kids nowadays. I just feel like they're so sickly and frail. And you said he had a solid constitution. That's really encouraging to hear.
No, he definitely has a solid constitution. When I say that, confidently as well, because his body's being built on good building blocks. It's like any foundation you're building. You want to build it on good, solid foundation. And, Dr. Kate Shanahan talks about in her book, Deep Nutrition, that the bone broth is such an incredible part, especially when they're growing, because their bones are continually just stretching and growing, and and then you're feeding them bone broth, and we give them probiotics as well and other things. So we're working with Kim Schutte out here, and just keeping them well nourished is what it comes down to. And the Weston A price is a big part of that for us. We eat real food, and we try to tell some of our friends say, look, man, you're the parent. Kid does not need to live on chicken nuggets and pizza and macaroni and cheese. Just feed him what he's gonna eat the food if you feed it to him, and you teach him how to eat well. So
absolutely. Now I heard you talking about how long you simmer the broth or the stock to make the broth. I think that's fantastic because I know that the longer we let it simmer, the more it becomes nutrient dense.
Yeah, and what we did, Hilda, after studying nourishing traditions and working with different people, we came up with sort of a formula, and our proprietary formula includes 18-hour simmer, and we find with chicken bones at 18 hours are pretty much mush. So to leave them in any longer just isn't economically feasible. But of course, beef bones are much older. The animals are pastured animals that have been on pasture for 28 to 32 months. Of course, chickens are very short life, but so those are a 24-hour simmer, and that's enough to extract what we need out of those bones to get it into flavor. And we fooled around with 36 hours. We fooled around with 48 hours, and we didn't find enough difference to make it that way. So we don't even, again, it's more of when you think about how long it takes to process one package of bone broth, I mean, we're 18 hours just in the kettle. It's 3 hours prior, 3 to 4 hours after getting it down, and then another 24 hours just to get it frozen. So it's a big process. It's a costly process, and we are meticulous about making it really well.
You want to do it right, it sounds like.
Yeah, we do. Our process includes, for us, it's all certified organic and higher. Exclusively use Mary's Chicken out here in Fresno. They're certified and verified non-GMO as well, and they are also certified humane. The same thing with our beef, pastured beef, grass-fed, grass-finished only, and we will be certified organic. We are certified organic on that product as well. So all three of our products, and then we made one soup. And a big thing for your audience to know as well is we source Palomar Mountain spring water for our bone broth. It is on our website. We're going to put it into our packaging, and basically, we just didn't take any chances on the water. It's a lot of the type of water people are using called triple filtered. I have no idea what that means. And another Weston A Price chapter leader out here told me, Lance, they make Coke and Pepsi with triple filtered water. So, like I said, we didn't take any chances, Hilda, with anyone or any of our clients. We use Palomar Mountain spring water direct from the mountain. It's been rated one of the top waters in the world. And then, of course, everything is certified organic. All our vegetables come. We're here in Southern California, so all of them are local. In terms of this area, if you count local within 100 miles, we're sourcing all our vegetables from here. And we have a couple local sources for other stuff as well, like all the lemons we use in the bone broth. And of course, we use apple cider vinegar component to help draw the minerals from the bones. We take care to make sure that bone broth every day is perfect.
Well, what comes to my mind is that, when people talk to me about real food, I say, well, the best thing you can do is make it yourself, grow it. If you can't grow it, then go to a farmer's market. We want to get as close to local as we can. And if that's our backyard, that's fantastic. If it's a nearby farm, that's fantastic. But the truth is with broth, I think you said to me earlier, 95% of people love it, but just don't want to make it. Is that right?
That's true. I mean, I'll tell you about the broth. We have another trademark called the Brothery. Uh-huh. And the Brothery came about in 2012. That was based on Sally Fallon's article, Broth is Beautiful, where there should be a brothel in every town, as she said in there. And of course, the brothel thing, we couldn't quite go there. So we took out the Brothery, and we trademarked that, and we own that term because we felt there should be a brothery in every town, as she had wanted, and Weston A Price wanted. And and in 2013, in January, we realized that by having an internet site that could distribute all over America. And we were one of the first frozen bone broths out there distributing on the internet and all over the country. We've grown that tremendously as well. But getting back to that, so we've had a lot of customer service over the years, and I've been to 3. This year will be my 4th conference. If you want to come check me out, I'll be in Montgomery as the Brothery at bonebroth.com in Montgomery with Weston A Price Wise Traditions Conference this year. But yeah, we've found at those conferences, people come up to me all the time and have called into the site saying, we love bone broth. We believe in bone broth. We make bone broth. But sometimes we're just glad we don't have to. We get the people that say, I love bone broth, but my husband can't stand the smell at night. Those kind of things. And then we always have people that tell us, I want to make this statement clear. I've done this on every podcast. I made the bone broth, but it didn't taste too good, and it didn't have any gel content to it. And I tell people, look, well, first of all, the broth is good for you. If you're simmering bones from well-raised animals, it's going to be good for you. There might be less collagen in it because you had too much water or not enough bones, but that process is a loving process. There's an energy to that process, and in that energy, you're creating health in that energy of taking the time and energy to make your own bone broth. And now, of course, between Nourishing Broth, Nourishing Traditions, and many other books out there on how to make it, we just tell people just go to a source, find what you want to do, fool around, different experiments. But making your own is an amazing process. And those people come back to say it was just such a tedious process. And I cooked it this long, and then I had to cool it and package it and put it in my own freezer, because you never make 1 cup of bone broth. You got to make a pot of bone broth, if you're gonna make it. But that's where we came in and said, well, we just want to take that bone broth you've been making and make it for you, and that's why it's fairly expensive. You know, it's not cheap to run a business here in California. So,
Right,
but
right.
in the meantime, we've got a Weston A Price magazine with a WAPF 10 code, so we're in that already. If that people want to know about that, and they can always call in and ask us any questions. Like I said, I'll be live in Montgomery this year myself. I'll be there for all 3 days, and looking forward to meeting everyone out there that's coming to the conference. So that'll
That's
be good.
fantastic. Yes. So you're saying if they use that code, they can get a discount on the broth. Is that right?
Yes, the WAPF 10, not case sensitive, and that is in advertised in the quarterly journal as well. So yeah, they can use that code and get a 10% discount on all our orders. And we just introduced August 1st our free shipping model. So basically, if you buy $125 more of bone broth, and you can pick any broths you want now, put them in your cart, and you'll get a free shipping to wherever you are in America.
And broth really keeps well in the freezer, doesn't it?
Yeah, all our broth is fresh frozen. So within 4 to 6 hours of coming out of the kettle, it is frozen. All our bags are BPA free, and we don't pack until 69 degrees or less. So the broth is cool, and all our broth is fairly new, meaning we don't keep our inventory around too long.
It goes fast. That's fantastic. It's a great product, and there's a saying in Spanish, "Lo barato sale caro," which means if it's cheap, it ends up costing a lot. And I guess what I'm saying is, if you want to invest in your health, you can invest the time making this broth yourself, or you can invest by paying for someone to do it for you. But it's going to be worth it because your health is going to have the benefit of it.
Absolutely. And then, the nutrient density of our product's been lab tested. So we have a 10 grams of protein in every cup of chicken broth, 11 grams of protein in every cup of beef broth. And just to mention as well, if you go to the website, we have a couple other products that we don't advertise that are not our retail products. One of them is our 2-hour meat stock. And the 2-hour short cooked meat broth is made in alignment with the philosophy of the GAPS protocol phase 1. So we may have GAPS practitioners listening. That product is available to those people that are most weak as well. When they come to the practitioner, they're very weak and they don't have time or energy to make bone broth. So we have that product, and we also have it, and it is what we call AIP is our other product, and that's an autoimmune protocol where we basically removed everything from the bone broth except for carrots, celery, parsley, small amount of salt, and the bones, and of course the Palomar Mountain spring water. And that product is less allergenic. So we've had people that can't have onions, can't have garlic, they can't have lemons, they can't have apple cider vinegar, they can't have certain things because they're immune protocol. And so we made that product available as well, and it's super delicious, truthfully. All our broths, we are the Flavor Chef Inc. I am the Flavor Chef. So my broth, the most things people say is, "Oh my God, that's delicious." So and that's one thing people say about bone broth: it's hard to make taste good, but we make it taste delicious here at the Flavor Chef Inc. and bonebroth.com.
That's fantastic.
So,
Well, as we start to wrap up, let me ask you, what is one thing you would recommend that the listener do to improve their health?
my number one health tip right now is to hydrate properly. And that really helped change my life, Hilda. And that means, generally speaking, about 50% of your body weight in water a day. Not tea, not coffee, not soda, but just pure water. I'm sitting here drinking one of my mason jars with just a few lemon peels in it, and a small pinch of salt. And that really is my number one health tip right now. I think hydration is such a problem in our country, especially when people have replaced water. And again, when we say water, I mean good water. We have a beautiful source here. So spring water, and research your water and get a great filter. They sell some great filters through the magazine, and just hydrate properly and throughout the day. Start your day with hydration. Throughout the day, hydrate, and you will find yourself feeling a lot better.
Wonderful. Well, Lance, thank you for your time today. I learned a lot about broth. I'm sure our listeners did as well. So I hope to see you in Montgomery, Alabama.
Absolutely. We'll see you there. And remember, at Flavor Chef Inc. and bonebroth.com, we serve up love as the ultimate spice.
My guest today was Lance Roll. Go to his website, theflavorchef.com or bonebroth.com to find out more about the benefits of bone broth and the products he offers. He's also all over social media as The Flavor Chef. For more details on the resources he mentioned on today's program or a summary of the show, just go to the website, westonaprice.org, click on podcasts, and go to the show notes for episode 43. Hey, and a quick thanks to Podcast Village and their wonderful team. They're giving us some great editing and audio support for the show. We appreciate you. Thanks so much.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with others. Post a link on Facebook or Twitter, or send a link to a friend in an email, or simply review Wise Traditions on iTunes. Sharing the podcast is one way to spread the important message of health through nutrition. Wise Traditions is brought to you by the Weston A. Price Foundation for Wise Traditions in Food, Farming, and the Healing Arts. The content of this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for medical advice.